So you might have remembered earlier that I was talking about the terminal. So now is the time that we are going to start experimenting with the terminal. For the record, you can use the terminal in VS Code. You can use this app on your Mac. If you're on a Windows, it'll probably be called Command Line or Command Prompt. But I'm going to use it within the VS Code editor because I think it is helpful to kind of show what that looks like and get you more used to the IDE and the benefits of the IDE. We are going to say ls, and what ls does, it is a shorthand for list, and it shows you all of the different folders that are available on your computer. So that literally maps to, you can see desktop, documents, downloads, movies, music, etc. I'm going to cd into desktop. Cd means change directory. So it basically changes your working directory from being at the top level to be one level in. And I am going to make a folder on my desktop by using the command makedir, mkdir, and I'm going to call this folder vibe coded app, because that is where I want to store my vibe coded app. And so you can see now I actually have this new folder that is called vibe coded app. So let's say I were to delete this empty folder, move it to trash. If I do ls again, you don't see vibe coded app anymore. It's not there. But if I do make dir vibe coded app again, boom, it is automatically created here. So it's pretty cool. So now I'm going to cd change directory again into vibe coded app. I'm going to hit clear so that we can kind of get a fresh slate. Clear does not get rid of the previous commands, it just clears the number of lines that are visible in the terminal. And we are going to follow these steps that are here. We are going to do git init, and it is going to initialize an empty Git repository. So you may or may not have Git already installed. I'm guessing you don't. If you have not installed Git before, what you can go ahead and do is just look up install Git. It will say git install. You choose your operating system, Windows, Mac. I'm on Mac, so I'll choose Mac. If you're Windows, you choose Windows. And what you're going to have to do is first install Homebrew, and then after you install Homebrew, you run this command. So I'll show you how to do that. You click install Homebrew. Homebrew is a package manager. So if you remember, like how I was saying that there's this concept of code that is hosted remotely, code that is locally on your device, a lot of software programs that exist in the world actually don't have a visual interface, but they run in the background and allow us to do specific things. So Homebrew is a package manager which basically allows us to grab and install software that doesn't have a visual interface. So when we downloaded Visual Studio Code, it was super easy because we got this installer here, and then I was able to drag and drop it into my applications. For things like Git, there isn't like a visual app that you can drag and drop, but we do still need it on this device in order to be able to use and run these Git commands that are here. So Homebrew is kind of like our middleman that allows us to do that. The way you install it is by running this command, and like to the point of it is not visual, it's all code that's packaged up. This is kind of what I mean. So we're going to copy this. As you can see, you can paste it both in Mac OS or Linux. So this, if you are running Windows, it will work on command prompt. I'm going to paste this in my terminal. Once again, I could do it here, but I'm just going to separate these outputs just to represent that there are different things that I'm doing. Okay, I am not on admin mode, so I'm going to go log into my admin account and then rerun this. Okay, I'm back. I set up my admin account, so this should work. I will copy this guy, go to my terminal, and then go ahead. So it's gonna ask for my password. I'm gonna put that in. Pause, please. Great. So you should see this similar output. It definitely takes a little bit of time to run, so don't worry about that. Your lines may look a little bit different. In my case, it was doing some updating, but long story short, it will finish hopefully fairly quickly, like so. Then you can run this command brew install git. Oh, oops. Oh, I gotta do these steps. Yeah, so run these commands in your terminal to add homebrew to your path. So what this means is, as you can see here, I was trying to run brew install git. So what that means is I'm saying brew, homebrew, please go ahead and install the program git. And you could do install numpy, which is a different program. You could have it install Python, yada, yada, yada. So in order though to use the shorthand brew, I need to go ahead and add homebrew to my path. So I'm going to run these commands. Echo. Yours will have different paths because it will be for your local directory. So it should be users if your name is Jill, users Jill, .z profile, etc., etc. And we're going to evaluate to see if it worked. So let's see, brew install git. Is that going to work right now? Cool. Yep, we see it downloading and it is running. Awesome. Once the output stops happening and you see these lines and you can hit enter a couple times, that means that it's completed. So with that in mind, we are going to now go overhead. So if you now type in git init and you don't see this value even after running those steps, what you might need to do is clear and restart your terminal. What that does is it refreshes the state of your terminal that's running. Oftentimes you do need to do that when you're running these command line steps, because otherwise the terminal won't know that you have run those steps and it's not up to date with kind of the freshest. So that's just something to keep in mind because that is a very common gotcha. And we are going to do git add readme. So what git add does is it literally adds a file for you. So git add readme, oops. Okay, so because I started a new fresh terminal, I need to now cd back into my folder. Vibe coded app, great. And what I'm gonna do is run something called git status. And it says, okay, I'm on the main branch and there's no commits yet. There's nothing to commit. So what we need to do is create a new file. So the reason why this file is not showing up here in the list of commits is because we did git init within the vibe coded app folder. So what I mean by that, this is the vibe coded app folder. The new file text is in the desktop. I'm going to drag and drop new file in here. And if I do ls, I'll see new file.txt. And if I do git status, I can now see that there's an untracked file. However, we don't see it in VS Code. Why is that? Because VS Code is pointing to my desktop. So I'm going to close this. I'm going to open a file or folder by clicking open folder. And I am going to navigate to vibe coded app and hit open. So boom. We are now in the vibe coded app folder and you can see my file.txt. I'm going to reopen my terminal command. It's automatically going to point me into the right working directory. I can hit ls to list and see that my file is there. And I can run git status again to see the status of my git commits. A little git 101 here. There are basically two main things that you need to keep in mind, three actually, when you're working with Git. So when I see this untracked file, that means that my local Git instance is not yet keeping track of it. So in order to make it keep track of it, I'm going to do git add my new file.txt. Great. Git status, green. It means that it is on deck to be committed. Now, like I said, the entire point of this is we want to get the files accessible and visible here on this remote platform. So what we first need to do is commit it. And we do so by writing git commit -m, the M stands for message, and I'm going to say, this is my commit where I'm going to add a new file. And you can describe it, right? And so it is going to say my name and email were not set up properly. This is more of a like housekeeping thing you can do later. It'll make more sense when we actually do the push, but basically this is what will identify the identity of the committer that shows up here. Now we can run git status again, and you'll notice there's a theme that we are continually checking the status to see the status of the commit. And now what I'm going to do is say git push to now push it to the remote. However, in order to do that the very first time, what I do need to do is add this project as the remote project. And we do that with this command, git remote add origin. And by the way, you may have noticed that I skipped some of these steps or did them differently. The reason I did them differently is because I tailored them for our use case, but they are basically the same thing. So we already did git init, which created a local Git repository. We added a file. Instead of adding a README file, we added our own file called mynewfile.txt. We did commit, and we included our own message. And we didn't create a new branch because we already have noticed that we are on the main branch, but this is like a step that you could have run. It's fine to not run it for this point. And now we're doing the add remote step. So we added it as a remote. There's no output, it means everything went fine. And what we can now do is push to origin main. And so what this code means is we're saying we are going to take the local commits, we are going to send it to the origin. Origin is another word for kind of the remote project. And what is the branch we're going to send it to on the origin? We're going to send it to the main branch. I'm going to hit allow. It's going to re-sign in that way. And there we go. We sent it directly to main. So I'm going to refresh this page. And look at that. We now see my new file here in my project, which is pretty cool. And so if you, in theory, wanted to download my code, you could go to GSON Ventures /vibecoded_app, and you could copy my URL to clipboard, and you could clone it. And you could write in your terminal git clone and paste this URL, and you would have that locally. You don't need to do that because you followed along these steps, but that's kind of like the magic of Git. Something I want to call out is that there is a concept of branches in coding. And so what that means is that, let's say you and I were working on the same project with the 5 other developers, we might not want to send everything to the main branch directly because I could have changes that would conflict with your changes. So let's say we were both working on the homepage of the same website, we would probably want to have the opportunity to discuss our changes with each other first. That was the purpose of having a branch, and the branch is kind of like a staging area that you can use before you send everything directly to main. Because the scope of this video is just getting you familiar with the high-level flow, and we know that it's just ourselves working on this application, we are going to be committing directly to main. But as you continue to develop and you work on more advanced projects, I would recommend start to consider the concept of branches. And I will be active in the Skool community, so you can feel free to comment questions if you start experimenting with branches. But yeah, this is super exciting. And something that we can also do is delete this file. I'm going to move to trash, get status to check. We see it's deleted. I am going to, the dot is a shorthand for adding all the files. I would be mindful when you use this step because it literally will add every single thing in your directory. In this case, it was fine because it was just one file, but just so you know. And I'm going to say remove new file to create fresh state. Once again, I'm going to git push origin master, main. You don't need the -u because you only need to do that the first time, and you don't need to set the remote again because you only need to do that the very first time you set up your repository. Boom, we see it. I'm going to refresh, and it's deleted. And you can see this was actually the commit message that I wrote. So if we go to the commit history, now what you can do is see what I did. I added it, and then I deleted it. And so you can imagine, back to the example of multiple people working on the same project, if all 5 of us were touching different files, it's cool to be able to see the full history of commits. All right, so that is our 101 on Git. I would like to now move into prompting to get the end-to-end going, but before we dive into that, I'm going to actually pause and make sure that we are all on the same page about where we are with the IDE, the extensions, and GitHub, and just kind of reinforce the takeaway of the ecosystem that we have working for us.